Hello everyone, welcome to a new banner review. I'm sorry it's a bit late. As I said in the last video, I wanted to cover Brunnya before she came out so people would not sack her for no reason. Especially considering how good of a unit she is. But enough of that. As per usual, I will go from worst to best, and then we'll cover the 3 to 4 star units separately. Whereas, I suppose you can say that to some extent Laloom and Chad can be compared. Laroom can at least dance, so I won't compare both of them. Now, let's start with the worst unit of the banner, and yeah. For every step forward, IS takes 3 steps back. And the room is a great example of that. So, remember why Tethys was so good? The fact she had bulk in the right places? The fact that she could be very bulky and offer support for the team? The fact that she could ploy? The fact that basically her offense was low, which allowed her to have stats in the right places? Well, Laroom says fuck that, and is literally just a retrend for the most part of, what's her name? Fina, who's another dancer that's created as a offense unit for some reason. I don't understand this. Anyway, we do get a gap skill. These skills are honestly very gimmicky. They're kind of like opening skills with extra steps. And the fact that it's 2 stats combined makes them very unwieldy overall. I don't consider them to be really that great. I don't think I've even covered them when I was talking about Ileana. But then again, the Halloween banner was a disaster as far as units were concerned, so I did not really put too much effort in that one, to be honest. Now, she comes with a weapon we've already had, but now is in the pool, I suppose, which is Elincia's Dagger. Another dragon killer. I suppose this can be good for your arena defense. While Laroom is terrible at using it because she has no bulk whatsoever, if you'd say use it on Laroom, it could be pretty helpful because it shuts down Vantage. The reason why I say it can be good is because, say you have to deal with Kronia or a Vantage tank, this dagger disables that. So if your other units do enough damage or the unit is taking damage every fight or something similar, then whatever dancer you have might be able to just kill said unit. Which is kind of helpful, and the dragon killer effectiveness, I guess, is good to deal with Naga. And not much else. Honestly, I would not bother with this dagger. Splashy Bucket is just an overall better dagger because it allows you to have more options. Unless you use Dragon Slasher in a manner of, say, running Special Spiral with AoEs, which Laroom is like the worst unit to use that with, because their attack is too low and their speed is too high, too much points wasted in speed, or def is too low. I think I'm going to just restrain myself for a moment and just say that Soph would use it way better in that regard, and is cheaper. Now, as far as comparison is concerned, I'm not going to even put PA Olivia here. There's nothing PA Olivia really does better than Tethys anyway. But yeah, here we are. So here we can observe that Laloom basically took 5 def off of Tethys' def stat and put it into her attack, and 4 res, and put it into her speed. Oh, and she has 1 less HP because. That's all. That's all the difference is. And honestly, it's all for the worse. Again, the thing is, Tethys can use ploys a lot better. Yes, I suppose you can run Fortress Death Res to make ploys work a lot to some extent on the room. But even if you do that, why? You have to realize that somebody at IS decided, oh yeah, this is going to be our new 5-star exclusive for colorless. Oh, and Tethys is most likely going to demote, so yeah, Tethys will be garbage, and Laroom will be good. Fina and Laroom are both terrible units. They completely miss the point of what they're supposed to be. Dancers are not meant to be damage dealer that kills the entire game, or is really good at killing stuff. They're typically what you call a support unit, and the more utility they have as far as supporting is concerned, the better they are overall as units. So if they can take hit easier to prevent your other units from dying by basically shielding them with their bodies, on top of being able to dance, on top of being able to ploy, they're just overall better. And Tethys does all of these things better than Laroom. Laroom is purely offensive. It's the same story of Olivia versus Fina. Olivia is overall bulkier and cheaper to build. And Fina's only niche is distant counter, no C disrupt to kill maybe 1 or 2 cav units with Vantage, but just hope for the best so Reinhardt or any other unit don't just one-shot you before you can even get to Vantage range for the goddamn weapon. Yeah, wow, it's great niche, great niche, great niche. But yeah, I think enough shitting on Laroom. To be honest, outside of Chad, yeah, spoiler alert, Chad is not very good. Outside of Chad, Laroom is the only unit of the banner you can actually say is bad. So, for that alone, this banner is amazing. FE6 actually getting the treatment it deserves is quite nice. Because the first FE6 banner we've ever had was such a disaster. Lu only had a monstrous dome set over the rest, and his stat line is solid to the same extent of Brunnya. To some extent, he needs to have a res refine to use sabotage skills even remotely decently. But while I do say this, Lu doesn't have a pref, doesn't have anything unique to him, so he's very forgettable and doesn't really have many options. At least until Gron Fox becomes a thing, in which case he's just going to be better than Nino on that regard. The other units on the banner were Idune. Idune is really good, really, really good. It's just such a shame she's an armored unit. If she had been an infantry unit, with that type of weapon, with that stat line, she would be insane. The only thing that would really be annoying to her are dragon killers. But imagine if instead of being effective against dead content like armored units, well, it wasn't dead content back then, it was actually quite good back then because Surtur was Surtur. But imagine if that had been changed to disable skills that grants effective against dragons. Imagine if you had something like that instead of armor killer and she had been an infantry unit. Idune would be insane. She's still solid, but compared to that, oh, don't get me started. All you would have lost is 7 BST. It's not even that much. Just remove 3 HP and 1 to all stats. The unit is still great, and she gets a super boon in speed anyway, so great. But outside of Idune, then you had like Fia, who's a lens flyer, so I don't think I have to explain why she's bad at this point. It's blatantly obvious. And the last one was a colorless. Who was it? I actually have no idea who it was. Pretty sure we had a fourth, but I honestly have no clue. Rutger was not great either. So, seeing this banner, which has only one bad unit in it, with a Tempestral unit that defies all reason by being one of the best, if not the best, GHB/Tempestral unit we've ever had. Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that FE6 actually got a second chance at all, because I'm pretty sure the FE6 banner probably did not sell that great, because there really was only one unit worth building in there. But yeah, without further ado, let's get to the good units of the banner. First off is going to be Echidna, and I'm sure some people are like, wait, isn't Percival, like, not great because of Sirius? There's a lot of things that... there's definitely a lot of things you can do with a lance like what he has. But Echidna now. I don't think I have to explain the stat line right now. All I'd say is she is the most likely demote of this banner, and if she demotes, if she demotes, it's big. It's very, very big. I'll say this because you get rear guard in the pool. Not really the main thing here. You get brazen speed res, which is kind of helpful in some cases. Chrome, for example, base Chrome can really use this with sealed potion quite well. Drive attack. Drive attack is 4-star. In other words, if Echidna demotes, we have a 4-star with drive attack in the pool. You want to know the last time we got a new drive skill in the pool? I was drive defense from Nana in the middle of book 2. We just finished book 3. It's been over a year. So all I have to say is about damn time, and it's bundled with a good brazen as well. Speed res is a bit strange, but the thing is, in a lot of cases, you have those units that have a lot of attack and a lot of defense, and then a salvageable speed stat and not great res stat. Chrome is one of them. It's a good example, but essentially, brazen speed will fix the speed of said unit, and res will allow them to fight longer, which is great in general. So it's great to see that one in the pool. Attack speed tends to be very awkward, because typically if you have good attack, you typically also have good speed. And if it's not the case, or rather if you have really good speed, you tend to have low attack, which is where you want the attack, so typically you go brazen attack def because the speed is useless, or brazen attack res. And if your attack's too high, with your speed being a bit low, it feels almost wasteful. So this is nice. This is really nice to see in the pool. All of these skills are actually fairly solid to have in the pool. And Echidna herself is okay. Let's just jump to the comparison. So I decided to put Ilger here just for comparison's sake, for all 2 people who did not watch my video about Ilger and how she's not great overall. At the end of the day, Ilger does nothing that Libra can't do. In fact, Libra is just bulkier. Want to have speed and end up having basically almost the same attack and speed despite being a 3 to 4-star unit instead of costing 2.7k grails? Yeah, go Libra. If you go Def Plus, Res Plus, sorry, with a, or I guess you could just go Def Plus, with Speed Refine, and you'd have like 5541, with 37 Def and what's that, 35 res or something like that, aka more def, more res. Basically this is the same attack, 2 less HP, and then like 1 less speed. If all you have over Libra is 2 HP and 1 speed, you are useless to invest in. I'm sorry, that's kind of just how it is. This is the set I I wanted to showcase more or less with Libra, because Faithful Axe gives you 3 across the board, which is really good. Echidna can kind of use it as well, but Libra is better with it because he has this amount of speed that's a bit weird. If you run Faithful Axe and you have him next to someone, for example, with a buff into speed, you have 47 speed right there. Which means that the speed you get from Faithful Axe is not wasted, whereas it would be actually wasted on Echidna. That said, if you're talking about using the unit without bonds, or without typical support, Brave Lucina for example, because Libra's quite good with it considering, you know, the stat line, every point matters, every point is good, to get the speed is helpful, the def is helpful, the res is helpful, the attack is helpful. If you don't have these types of things, Echidna is a bit better. The best way to really describe this is that Echidna is a more standalone unit, whereas Libra is a more all-rounder unit, which relies a bit more on others. The reason why I try to make the distinction here is Libra overall can have more bulk than Echidna. Even if you go Res Plus or Def Plus, Echidna will only beat one of the stat by barely any points, and the other stat will be absolutely beaten by like 2-3 points anyway. So Libra is just better overall in bulk, and again, Faithful Axe and other thing like Brave Lucina, the speed you get from that is not wasted on Libra, whereas on Echidna it tends to be. I will say, though, that Libra is still cheaper to make. If Echidna does demote, you have to realize that for every copy you're using to make the plus 10, you're sacrificing Drive Attack. Drive Attack is a very sought after skill, so yeah. It's a bit iffy as a result. I will say though, Echidna is still a solid unit. I'm not saying Libra is better than Echidna. Honestly, Echidna does a few things better, like the fact that you don't have to run something like Brave Lucina or Faithful Axe. You can just basically be fine the way you are. Libra can also run just a speed refine to make up for it, obviously, but then you lose a lot of bulk, and the difference between Echidna and Libra becomes a lot smaller. Overall, I'd say neither one is better than the other. They're both better than Ilger, of course. I mean, just look at Echidna next to Ilger. More HP, more attack, 1 less speed. Same def, more res. Wow. Gee whiz, I wonder which one I'll pick. But honestly, it comes down to preference. If you've already started a project of Libra, it's probably not worth investing in Echidna whatsoever. But if you like Echidna and you don't have Libra worked on yet, Echidna's a fine project to work on. She really is. That said, I will say Ross, which is not a character I actually showcased here because Ross is a lot less balanced overall, is a lot cheaper to get, and his stat line is overall a bit better in my opinion, but it does require you to run a Brazen to fix the stat line. So it's a bit awkward overall. Still, Echidna is definitely worth building if she demotes. If she doesn't demote, oh, sorry. She really isn't. Libra does more or less the same thing as Echidna, after all. Honestly, it's basically the same unit, more or less, with a different skin. And also, for the 2 people who don't understand this, why I use like maxed flower on everyone, it's because that's just the max stats. And even if you bring the argument that, oh well, I would not invest 600 flowers on the unit on the right, I'd rather like invest 400 on the unit of the left, giving 5 flowers is basically price, like without price. It's cheap. It's very, very cheap. And you get for Gen 1 unit, of course, Gen 1 infantry units. But for those who can only get 5, it's fairly expensive, so you don't really tend to do this unless you want to go all in on them. So, I guess for the sake of argument, just compare a +0 flower versus a +5 flowers. It's the same result at the end of the day. But alright. Let's move on to the builds. Keep in mind, if you really like also Libra, most of these sets can be used by Libra as well. Just in a different manner. So the set on the left is just a null-C disrupt set. There's not much to it. Obviously, both of these sets really are at their best with Brave Lucina supporting her. Of course, if you invest flowers in Echidna, you can actually have enough speed already at 47 without any support. That said, with Brave Lucina support, you already have enough speed. With Brave Lucina support, you also end up with, what's that, like 48 def res? With 61 attack and 49 speed? 66 attack, sorry. But the main important takeaway here is that because of Brave Lucina, you get hit and then you proc Bonfire right away every single time. Bonfire is quite good already because with 45 or 48 death because of Brave Lucina, you do 24 damage. Attack Def Bond is not ideal for AR, however. That said, Sturdy Stance might become a thing in the... It might become a thing later, essentially. So if it does indeed become a thing, just replace Attack Def Bond for a Sturdy Stance in AR. Attack Def Bond will be better everywhere else, but in AR you can just use Sturdy Stance and it's gonna do just fine. The set on the right is actually not reliant on Brave Lucina, unless you want to give some extra sauce. To put it simply, you can run the Wogun instead of Slaying Axe if you have Brave Lucina, because you'll just get an extra 10 damage with Ignis as a result. However, if you don't use Brave Lucina, you can just run Ignis with Slaying Axe instead, and still proc your skill every time. It's the same logic as the other set, it's just that you can't do shit against units with Dazzling Staff or similar other skills. So there's that. But it's still overall fairly solid. I suppose this set on the right would be better served in a more armored-centric, I guess would be the word, place. Still, it's overall fairly solid. Moving on to the second page of sets. Set on the right is a more, what's the word? A more supportive set. Do you know that if you refine the weapon to res instead of defense, you can actually run ploys instead of drives? So that is a good bit of utility. That said, going to give you 2 def and 2 resto units around you, drive attack and drive speed equals 3 in attack and speed, so you essentially become a moving Marth with this. So that's pretty good overall, and Sudden Panic works quite well with 58 HP backing it up. If you have already a +10 legendary hero for Arena, and you bless Echidna with it, that's also 61 health. 62 health if you invest 40 flowers in her. So that makes Sudden Panic fairly consistent overall, so yeah, that's actually fairly solid overall. Overall. But yeah, it's overall, god damn it, it's a good set. Set on the left is a Echo Lantern set. Same system as the other set. It's basically very similar. I think it's actually literally the same set that I posted, that I was talking about Wogun, except with Echo Lantern. Echo Lantern would just make her more bulky overall. So you can just use Echo Lantern for a more defensive set to block specials, or you can use Wogun to just inflict more damage. It comes down to preference, really. Again, you can switch Bonfire to Ignis if you have access to Brave Lucina on the team. So, yeah, moving on to the third page. Yeah, there's a bit. Bonus Doubler is actually quite good on her. After all, she's a good all-rounder. All the stats she has are good. So, if you can double those buffs, do it. This is also a far more aggressive set overall, with Brazens. Brazen attack rest pushes the def rest to 44-44, bonus doubler to 50-50. So you're basically looking at 74 attack for 52 speed, which is really good already. But with 50 def, 50 res backing it up, meaning you proc, get hit, proc again. And at that point you're so bulky you can get in Wrath range and Brazen range, and then you become even bulkier, but also you become a lot more dangerous. Ross can do something very similar also, and it's no joke that it's actually really solid on him as well. This is what I like to call the Ira build. Obviously, Moonbow is also an alternative, and so is Glimmer. It's fine. I just put Ruptured Sky by more or less habit. You can use Attack Smoke, by the way, to increase your bulk, but if you do, don't use Ruptured Sky. Instead, use Moonbow. And vice versa, because if you use Moonbow on something that got Death Smoke, well, you lose damage that you got from the special anyway. So yeah. It's the reason why I call this an Ira set is because Ira was the first unit to do this kind of thing. Ira was using a Slaying Edge, always is, even now, using a Slaying Edge over her pref, so she can have one cooldown with Ragnalastra. Ragnalastra does 20 damage, 21 damage, sometimes even 22. So what happens is that you just have one cooldown. So Wrath charge ups the cooldown. You hit the unit with Ragnalastra, instantly proccing it for an extra 20 to 30 damage, get hit and proc it again. This is really good with Ira stat lines where you end up having so much speed that you can just go all out with double Brazen going into attack and investing in your bulk to the point where you're actually stronger the longer you fight. As weird as that is to say. And that's something that every Ira stat line does quite well. Pollen Corinne is one of those, by the way. Pollen Corinne is essentially a Gen 3 trainee units with the Ira stat line, colorless, and a weapon that gives 43 points of stats. I don't know why they thought this was okay. Anyway, the set on the right is a more defensive set, more based on just taking the hit and then using it against them. It's also used with Shoreline Rake, which is, ironically enough, Ilger's weapon. It provides 4 attack and res once you're buffed, so it synergizes quite well with bonus doubler. So as a result, what ends up happening is that you get, because you have 6 attack buff, you end up getting an extra 6 because of bonus doubler, 4 from Shoreline Rake. Once you take enough damage, you get another 7 from Brazen Attack Def. It is honestly quite solid. So overall, you get 17 attack from this set. So you're sitting at 75 attack, 52 speed, while also increasing your bulk by quite a bit. You'll be looking at 53 defense, I believe. Yeah, 53 defense and 55 res. This is a bit bulkier than the set on the left, however, you're a bit less consistent overall, and you're more so focused on enemy phasing. So, it's kind of a pick your poison kind of deal. So overall, Echidna is a fairly solid unit. Really, at the end of the day, if you really like Echidna and you have not built Libra, there is not much you can go wrong about this if she does indeed demote, which is very likely, but I do want to stress that out still, because she does come up with 2 new skills, and another one of the skills on her kit was Premium Fodder until now, though it has been marked as a 4-star skill of like every unit that has gotten it until now. Like Quan gives it at 4-star, Leif gives it at 4-star. It's been going for a while, it's just that the units that had drive attack never demoted. This one is the most likely of all, though, which is nice. Now, let's move on to Percival. Now, Percival is actually quite good. A lot of people have been saying prize lance is not great, and I frankly don't get it. This lance... How can I put this? Remember Conrad? Remember how I said he was actually really good, purely for his stat line? And how I was actually using a very similar weapon to this in one of his set, where basically if the foe was at full HP, would just get 2 across the board. The Flashed Carrot, I think. Yeah, this is basically that with double the stat, cooldown -1, and a guard effect applied on top of all of this. Like, what? And his bulk does not look like anything until you realize that he has a lull giving him 3 extra death res, essentially. Blocks the enemy from using any buff in attack. Lull attack speed kind of blows for him. I really wish they gave him lull attack death, but there's not much you can really do about it. Rouse death res. Still waiting for Rouse speed res to combo into Visions of Arcadia, but I mean, it's still a decent skill overall. And attack dev solo. With a weapon that gives 4 across the board. Overall, really solid. This is the second unit with low attack speed, and I'm sure that he's going to get killed quite a bit because of Brunnya, as low attack speed is one of the best B skill that you can run, if not the best. I actually would say it is the best B skill for her. Getting the 3 extra speed just does so much, and blocking any speed buff the enemy might have is also extremely good. So I can see him being killed for Brunnya, but let me tell you, Percival is actually quite good in general as a unit. And as a character as well. I'm actually quite good that he was quite happy that he was treated this nicely. Let's just jump to build, shall we? Or rather, comparison. Let's not be too hasty. So, this is the main competition. There is also Sirius, but Sirius doesn't have a rest stat. As a matter of fact, that's kind of a problem with lance calves in general. They don't really have a whole lot of res. Hollywood has like 16 res. I'm talking about the Brave version. And Sirius is like 17. So already there, you're kind of off to a bad start. The only unit that has a similar stat line to Percival, as far as bulk, speed, well, bulk and speed is concerned, is Sully, who also has 6 less attack. Yeah, it's kind of hard to compare him to Sully, of all people, so I just won't. And if you compare him to the rest, well, Conrad has also less attack. He's also more bulky until you kind of realize that Prize Lance is giving 4 across the board. Sure, you can use something like Flash Carrot on Conrad, and yes, it is quite solid, but even then, it's still a way smaller gap than it first looks like. It is also quite good that he came as a Lance Cav. I know that's weird to say, but that's a good thing. Let me explain. If he was an axe cav, for example, then every other cav would be able to do something similar to what he does. What is it that he does? Well, having a guard effect on his weapon. The fact of the matter is, Dorcas has an axe that gives cooldown not cooldown -1. It gives guard, and it has no HP threshold. So if he was an axe unit, this would not be very unique to him. But the fact that he's a lance unit makes it rather unique, which is good. And on top of this, getting cooldown -1 on top of that, and 4 across the board is just borderline disgusting, honestly. He is insane with Brave Lucina, and, you know, that's also what I said about Conrad, but I will be honest and say that Percival actually outdoes Conrad. Completely. Because Conrad, honestly, the only thing Conrad has as an issue is that he has too much speed. Remember, 41 speed, buffs 47, lens 51. That's kind of a shame, honestly. Still, if you compare that to Perry, yeah, there's not much difference, is it? Or rather, there's not much good on Perry's part. 3 less HP, 2 less attack, 4 less speed, 2 less def. Oh, but look at that, she has 3 more res. That's not enough. Percival is just overall better. On top of having the cooldown -1 and 4 across the board that Perry also have. Except the difference here is that he also has a guard effect on top of it. And Perry is a really good lance cav. So, that's quite solid. Now, as far as Percival builds, do understand that this is mostly with Brave Lucina as a support. Brave Lucina is what makes him shine. And you have to realize Brave Lucina is rarely ever meant to fight. At best, you'll be running Fury on her, so you can soak chills on her instead of Brave Ike, Percival, or whatever unit you're comboing her into. That's what I do with mine. I run Fury 3, so she's the one that gets hit by chill attack, not Enos or Brave Ike. So, having 2 lands on the team is not exactly a drawback, especially if on top of this, she helps characters such as Brave Ike. Now with the set on the left, I went with Def Plus because it's a super boon, and with Attack Res Bond, you actually end up tying your Def and Res. So, you're already basically at 63-47 offensively and 42-42 as your bulk. Add 4 to that. That's what you actually have. Okay, that's pretty good. You're looking at 67-51 with 46-46. It's pretty good. Then I had the lull skill on top of it. Oh, you are now on 70 attack, 51 speed. Oh, and on top of all that, you're also at 49 def res. And if the enemy gets attack smoke, you're up to 56-56. And on top of this, you have effectively 46 def for Bonfire, so 23 damage from Bonfire. Get hit, you proc because of Brave Lucina. Even if the enemy has something that makes them double and you can't double back. Which is huge. It gives a lot of power overall to Percival. 70 attack with 23 spec damage behind it is insane, no matter how you look at it. The set on the set on the right is more or less the same, but in a more damage-dealing way. Not damage-dealing way, bulkier way, rather. This set right there hits 52 def and 52 res. And with low attack def, that jumps up to 55-55. If attack smoke hits, 62-62. At that point, taking damage at all is very difficult. And even if you're dealing with anything that has specials, which is the one thing that really hurts characters with high bulk, with say bold fighter or special fighter, it typically won't matter because that lance blocks special charges. Even if they get one because of bold fighter, it typically won't be enough, which makes Percival in this very weird position where just because of that it makes him worth using, which is great. And it's a very strong niche. And while his speed is too much on higher merges, if you're talking about low merges, that's a completely different story. Even on low merges, even with the lowest merge possible, he's actually got enough speed to work. So he's one of these units that you should keep as a one-off, because regardless of if he has 10 merge or not, he actually is still very formidable. He does not rely on his merges nearly as much. While it does help him, he does not have to rely on them, which is great. And now moving on to Igrene. Now, I probably butchered this name because it's pronounced very differently in French. I think it's Igrene that I'm supposed to pronounce it as. I'm not even sure, to be honest. But that's probably with a French accent as well. In French it's Igrene. That's how you're supposed to pronounce it. So the English accent is making it very hard to pronounce. And it's going to sound like ass every time I do. So I'm sorry about that. Anyway, let's talk about her. Outside of the VA that I honestly never heard of until now, which I'm honestly shocked Patrick Sades managed to just go, oh yeah, that's what I want. This VA, it's weird I talk about VA, but this VA is so good on her that when you hear the Japanese version of this character, it sounds horrible. And I love that VA. It's the VA of Albedo, which is a woman that most people already know from Overlord. And she literally sounds just like Albedo doing the role. It does not fit her whatsoever. It's so awkward. I'm like, I'm sorry, no. I had to verify that the quotes were the same because I don't expect a woman to sound like this while talking about grief and loss. But, oh well. Moving on. This Guardian bow of hers is actually really good. Honestly, if it wasn't for this bow, I would just be saying, pack your things home, boys. She's just home, but with a collar, which makes her infinitely worse overall. Why is this a thing? But no, this bow is actually really good, and being a red archer is actually not bad, because ranged red units in general are decent, but while they are decent, there's not a whole lot that are actually like very solid unit offensively. There's Hubert, there's a one, there's Celica, and then there's her. Everyone else they're okay, but they're not exactly anything to write home about, which is kind of a shame. What else about her set? Well, she comes with Life and Death 4, which originally I kind of wanted to kill her for Gem Key, but now I'm starting to debate on maybe making her a merge project. After all, as some people know, I've been working on Nagi and Nyla, and they're both on a banner right now, so I might actually finish both of them. Fingers crossed on that one. I got one of the Nylas I needed for Nyla, for those who are curious, and then I proceeded to get Pity Fisted 4 times. I think I got 5-star in 300 ores, which sounds good on paper until you realize that one of the 5 was a focus and the others weren't. If all of them were focused, my Nyla would be +10 and my Nagi would be +9. Keep in mind that focus have higher chances than of banners on a 3-man banner, so this was extremely unfortunate. Still, that will be something I'll decide over time. Life and Death 4 is honestly, I don't want to say underwhelming, but it kinda is. It's not to the point where I would never even consider to use it. This is a good skill. It really is a good skill overall. It's just, I was expecting a bit more. That said, it's really good on AoE users. But please don't be dumb and sack her off for just Ophelia or something. There is something a few people in my Discord have been saying, and I actually do agree to some extent, and that's the fact that AR is so focused on tanking mages. It's so focused on you, like, stacking res, that your death stat tends to be extremely neglected. So what ends up happening is that whatever Ophelia can't kill, Igrene can. Which is really good, because that way you have coverage for both defense and resistance. All you need to do is a bit of infantry pulse. And if you're in offense, you can also just use Veloria. Though Veloria is in a bit of an awkward spot. I believe she has less HP than Igrene, with something like 2 less health, I think. I might be off. Maybe that's not the case, but I think she actually has less HP, which can be a bit awkward overall. It's easily fixable by just, you know, giving an HP skill as a seal, or a skill for Veloria, so she can function as a support unit. But it's worth mentioning, I suppose. She's going to be insanely helpful on infantry comps, though, I can assure you, with infantry pulse. I'm not looking forward to having to deal with her in AR, but at the same time, people tend to be so stupid to just eat up what everyone says and sack her off for Life and Death 4 on Ophelia for literally no reason. It's basically trading a unit in to get the same unit but magical. That was already perfectly fine with just Life and Death 3 and Special Spiral. Not what I call a smart idea. So the set is actually very straightforward. She comes with all the fodder you need for her, honestly. Most of the sets I'm going to be showcasing to you, frankly, there's not a whole lot to even give to her. Close Counter is probably the most expensive thing you'll give to her, and after that, it's not even... I don't think there's really any other very premium skill that I give to her. It's that ridiculous. Now for comparison, yeah, when I was saying that she's basically all but colorless, I wasn't lying. This breath of her is the only reason she has something that Alm doesn't. While the color might seem like a detriment, the fact that it's a red range unit is actually still good, because those are, like I said, very scarce. If she had been blue, where high attack, high speed unit are like everywhere, with like mages, she would not be very impressive. And if she would have been green, then she would always be compared to Nino to some extent, who has access to blade tomes. But being red is actually quite helpful. It's a boon in disguise, really. I'm glad that they finally decided, oh yeah, maybe we should have red fucking bows. And they sure didn't disappoint. Honestly, the 2 res and 2 HP she has are going to be very key to her. But you'll see that on, I think, the 4th build. I suppose we'll see. So, let's get started. Oh, and also there's another thing to say. She has a super boon in attack, Alm doesn't. Meaning that if you're using AoEs, she's already better. But the fact that her weapon has cooldown -1 means that she does not have to run Flashing Blade, or Heavy Blade for that matter, to actually be able to chain AoEs. Alm needs Flashing Blade or Heavy Blade to do so. And since you don't need that slot, that just means more stats for Igrene, which is really good for her. In other words, you can run Life and Death 4, and then combo this with Attack Speed 2, or Attack plus 3, which gives you 10 attack, which is 15 damage on the AoE, whereas Alm would have to run, say, Flashing Blade 4 with Attack Speed 2, which would give him 8 damage for AoEs, which means he's actually behind in damage. Another thing to note is the fact that AoEs ignores colors for the AoE itself, so the fact that she can hit like 70 attack visibly kinda just makes it redundant that she's red. Yes, she is red, but as long as she does 1 damage after getting your HP down to 1, it doesn't matter, you still die. Which, unless you're going to use like a very good blue tank, is typically going to be the case. Even if you have, say, a 45 def, you are still taking 37 damage from the AoE alone, which is ridiculous. And reminder, if the def is too high for her to kill, you can just make Ophelia kill instead. If you have stat in both to have to deal with, then color will actually play a role. If you have to deal with a blue unit, which would probably be the most ideal case, well, sure, she won't do great, but Ophelia will typically finish it off, if anything. And if that's not the case, if they're green, then Igrene kills it. If she's red, if the enemy's red, which won't happen, Ophelia will kill them. So that's basically only one color that can really deal with this. And it's not like they can deal that much better with it. At the end of the day, they're still going to take massive damage because, as I said, AoEs ignores combat triangle. Anyway, moving on to the build. Build on the left is not really obvious. Or rather, it's extremely obvious. It's not really creative, was the word I should have went for. But it's still worth mentioning. It's really good to just break, I suppose in general, break LHB, MHB. I think you've seen me enough with Gemkey killing every single legendary LHBs, which I don't think I'm going to be uploading on my channel anymore, just because I don't think people really give a shit about this at this point. Sometimes I use a different team and I do want to showcase it, but I don't think people really care, so there's no point in me posting something that no one wants to watch, you know? Anyway, set on the right is the aggressive set that's a bit more defensive, and ironically enough, you end up being very bulky with this. So you end up hitting 71 attack, 47 speed, with, let's see here, 44 def and 44 res. Now, that bow here, if you have 1 more speed than the enemy, which even if you don't go speed plus, is easy, will give you 5 across the board. That is really good. I say 5 across the board, but in reality you remove 5 attack speed and def of the enemy. It's just, as far as your own stats are concerned, it's basically like you got 5 across the board. So at that with low attack def, you end up extremely bulky. Like I said, you have 44-44 already, with just mirror impact and sturdy blow 2, right? Well, what if I told you that you get 5 across the board because of the bow, meaning you end up with 49-49. Then low attack def push in, and you're at 52 def, 52 res. Then attack smoke kicks in and pushes your 52-52 to 59 def, 59 res. This is a ranged unit. On top of that, she ends up with 52 speed. And mind you, she will double someone with 46 speed. Because she has 1 more speed, she gets a +5. And her attack? Well, her attack is 79 attack. So yeah, she hits like an absolute truck. I've put A for her here, but do realize that you can just use something like Noontime or Moonbow. It really is up to you at the end of the day. Overall, she's very solid offensively, but there's more. Now. Close counter Glacies. So what you're seeing here would require you to run Rest Plus, which is not a super boon. I believe Def Plus is the super boon. Yeah. Oh, actually, that is an error from Game Press. I forgot to tell them to fix their shit. But she does not actually get a super boon in res. Only in def and attack, I believe. Don't worry, the unit builder actually did not fuck this one up, I believe. Surprisingly enough, because they constantly fuck up everything. I'm actually impressed. That's one thing they didn't fuck up. Oh, and speaking of things they fucked up Brunnya. Fimbulvelter is not in there. Elysian Traveler Olivia still doesn't have Dance. Ratterfuck still doesn't have the Res Refine on it. Forsyth is still missing the Soul Lance. I don't know what to tell you. This is so incompetent. It's almost impressive. Anyway, moving back to this. Due to Guardian Bow and Def Res Bond, you are essentially looking at 46 Def, 47 Res. On top of this, you're looking at 66 attack and 52 speed, which is not bad. Obviously, I'm counting the bow always working, but honestly, it's really rare it won't work. Even against Ulm, because 90% of the time what happens with Ulm is that he's reliant on an A skill that only boosts a stat on player phase. Because his bow only works on player phase. His bow is really annoying to deal with, but hell, I've made my Dirgery attack 1, and she doubled him. Not only doubled him, but I think I managed to get the damage as low as 5. Dirgery, everybody. But yeah, so as a result, he doesn't have any enemy phase. Igrene's pref is actually really good because it's both player and enemy phase. As long as you have more speed, you get stats. It's basically Mulligear, but with cooldown -1 instead of rest +3 and some garbage dual ranged effect that doesn't work because the unit is not built for this. So yeah, it's literally just a better version of the refined Mulligear. With a better stat line and access to actual skills, because she's not on a horse, which is fantastic for her. Glacies with the set means that you just get hit and proc. You don't even need any support whatsoever. Special Spiral gives you 2 charge, Glacies is 3 charge, getting hit gives you the last charge. So that's really solid overall. But you want to know something that's even more disgusting than that? The set on the right. So this set I ended up going attack plus instead of rest plus. The reason is simple. This is a supported with Brave Lucina set. The reason why I point this out is because Aether is a 4 cooldown because of her bow. you get 2 charge from Special Spiral, meaning get hit, you proc, despite the fact that this is a 5 cooldown. Why is this relevant? Well, if you build her to tank, you're still sitting on 46 def, 44 res, yeah? If you have Lucina helping you, you're looking at 49, 47. And you'll typically run, I'd say, drive attack with drive res, which means you'd have 4950. 4950 is already bulky in itself. It's really hard to one-shot. So what tends to happen is you take the hit, you live it, and you're ready for Aether. Then you kill something that has maybe, let's say, 40 HP. Say you took someone with 60 attack to the face. You take 11 damage. Then your, what is that, 70 attack procs Aether? Well, you can imagine what kind of result that does. Aether does lose damage because of her bow, but it's fine. At the end of the day, you're using this to heal yourself. If they have, say, oh, I don't know, 40 defense, and you use this bow, meaning the 40 def becomes 35, you do 30 damage plus 17 from Aether, that's 47 damage. You essentially one-shot the dude, and you heal yourself for 20. You take 11 damage and heal yourself for 20. That's how good her enemy phase becomes. So she's bulky enough to just take the hit and then dish back all the damage back, but also heal herself back up. That's insane. She basically doesn't need sustain because Special Spiral function as both a skill to heal herself, as in like a souped up mystic boost, but also basically Wrath. It's so weird to say, but it works really well with her. Most unit who can run cooldown -1 can run this, but no one to the extent that she does. Reminder, you make them lose stats also. So even if they do end up proccing specials, it's not that dangerous. Now, she comes with Pulse Smoke. Death Smoke helps you doing more damage, pushing your 70 attack to 77. So if you want to like tank a group of enemy, this might be better to ensure that you kill them with Aether and heal from them. However, if you're afraid of specials, Pulse Smoke is literally in her kit, so you can actually use that to your advantage as well. This makes her incredibly versatile, able to actually run set both defensively and offensively. And keep in mind, this AoE set uses Attack Plus. This defensive set with Aether and Brave Lucina support uses Attack Plus. So it's not like you're reliant on a specific boon for either of these. You can use both of these at the same time, which is what makes her very good. Honestly, it's kind of a shock to see a new archer being comparable to Alm, but not only comparable, a colored archer comparable to Alm, and more versatile than Alm. And now for the other set, which is an obvious one, this is a more just so you do pure damage. Now, there was something similar here with Glacies, but this one does not rely on Special Spiral, which means you get rid of the attack buff of your enemy, which means you end up at 45-44, but your enemy cannot buff attack against you, and they lose 3 attack on top of it, which ends up making your bulk 48 def and 47 res, which is pretty solid. But since Guardian Bow and low attack def remove stats from the enemy, it's not like you get 24 from Bonfire. No, you'd still only get 20, so Blue Flames is a bit better. That said, Blue Flame, for the most part, will do the same job. Or rather, Bonfire will do the same job. It's just that Blue Flame will score better in Arena, and looks cooler, I suppose. But yeah, I suppose that's that about her. Now let's talk about Chad, shall we? This video is already an hour long. I can already tell people are going to just be like, why is it so fucking long? Now Chad comes in with Rogue Dagger. Don't let the 7 might fool you. I believe it jumps to 12 might once it's refined. Oh, the joy of early daggers. You have to just refine them to fix their attack. Drawback, which frankly I just don't care. I don't understand why drawback, honestly. I guess they were like, oh, Nino is one of them. And me is another! We need a colorless version of that. It also comes with Speed Smoke at 4-star, which is basically the main thing that you'll want him for, if at all. Speed Smoke is fairly not great. I'm gonna be honest, Speed Smoke is probably the worst of the smoke skills. Just because it doesn't take effect before you fight. It doesn't take effect when you most need it. That's the issue I have with that skill. That's not to say that it's a terrible skill or absolutely unusable. No. It is a decent skill to have. Just, I would have preferred something like Sturdy Blow, Mirror Strike, Brazen Attack Res. Anything added to the pool that is not already, well, in the GHB/Tempest Trial pool from units that are already not great, so you typically use them for that anyway, because there's nothing else you can do. But, maybe that's just me. So, I'll go quick over Chad, because, frankly, he doesn't have a build. This is the first free unit in a while that actually has nothing really to his name, as far as stats are concerned. As you can see, he ends up with less attack than Kronya. Basically almost the same HP, less speed than Kronya, less res than Kronya, which is kind of odd. In a way, Kronya actually has enough res to deploy to some extent, though it's very shaky on that front. And he has more depth. But that's really all he has. You could refine to res, and frankly, you should if you want mixed bulk. But then you're still behind Kronya by like 3 res. Then there's Legold. Legold has 2 more attack, 2 more speed. Basically the same def. Very similar res and less HP. But Legold is also a 3 to 4 star unit. Yeah. Not a whole lot happening, is there? But the main one that completely just puts him to shame is Soph. Then again, Soph is really difficult to beat as far as stats goes. His stats are basically min-maxed to be amazing. And honestly, you can make the case that, oh, Chad could work well with the Fury Dagger, until you realize that, yes, he could be all decent with it. But it's not like Soph can't use it. Peshcats is not that great of a weapon anyway. So typically you will just replace it for a different weapon, because there's just many options you have overall with Soph. Whatever weapon you have, he's going to make it work, which is great. Hell, his speed right here is only 39. It doesn't matter. If you are switching his dagger, which you most likely are, you can refine it to speed. 39 jumps to 41. With a buff, that's 47. Hey look, that's all the speed you really need. And Soph is a 3 to 4 star unit. And even if you switch to, say, Barbed Shuriken, you are still 7 attack ahead of Chad. and you have very similar res. You're behind by 6 def and 7 HP, but frankly, it doesn't really matter. Because you are so further as far as damage is concerned that you typically will kill. You have like the bulk to hit desperation anyway. Okay? So it's more important to get attack up at that point. And Soph is fine on that front as well. So honestly, if I would be forced to build one of these 4 units, it probably would be Soph. Brunnya at least has a niche with Atame. And Chad kinda has nothing. Even Legolt is better, and Legolt is worse than Soph. Like, absolutely. Absolutely worse than Soph. Like, if you take a refine and put it in defense for Soph, you end up with 31-27, whereas Legolt has 33-25. It's basically the same thing. But it's basically like Soph is basically Legolt with the attack and speed just switched around. But also just not 31 in the speed, it's 33, so yeah. Chad, as far as the unit is concerned, is not a Chad. He's more like a virgin. And yeah, with that said, that was the banner. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised. I'm really happy with the treatment for FE6 in this case. Kinda weird that Dick did not make it in, or however the heck you want me to pronounce his name. But, ah well. I guess that's IS being, you know, nice and just want to avoid people to be like, people actually getting demonetized. As silly as that is. But yeah, honestly, 3 out of 5 units are amazing, or at least, or in Echidna's case, at least good. Lalum is not great, and Chad is a 3 to 4 star unit. He's not supposed to be a game changer like Ross was. So, him not being like the most amazing unit is fine. If anything, it's nice to see all 3 of the boys together now. At least there's that. Yeah. But, yeah, I think there's not much else for me to say here. Just quite happy with the way this banner turned out. Honestly, this everything went so well in general. Cannot be more satisfied. This month, with Legendary Leif, Igrene, which is a character I've actually been waiting for a while because I just really love the color scheme. And I'm also a sucker for scarves. Even though I know it's not a scarf, it's a cloak. It just looks like a scarf from the front, which I like. It looks cute. And Percival is also a character I've been more or less waiting for. I say more or less because I was kind of dreading for him. I was not expecting him to be good. And I've been actually surprised. His weapon is actually really good, and a lot of people... Percival is going to be a sleeper hit. That's the best way I have to describe him. Because a lot of people are going to think that he has nothing unique to him, but the fact of the matter is that he's insane as far as enemy phase is concerned once Brave Lucina is comboed into him. And that's just insane. That's just absolutely insane to me. And frankly, the one unit that's actually bad on the banner is the one unit I don't care about from that game. So I'm fine with it. Absolutely fine with it. But yeah. Hopefully this was informative and not just a very long me rambling about units. I know I've been just stumbling on my words a lot this time. I'm sorry. Manual machining is taking all of my energy, and I also have like no sleep whatsoever. I literally have to run to go teach class in 30 minutes. Today is going to be such a mess. But with that said, have a nice day, everyone. I'm gonna see you in the comments in like 10 hours. See ya.